Despite getting a massive win on Monday night in Game 2 against the New York Islanders, the Carolina Hurricanes did suffer a huge loss on their blue line.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I am the beat writer over at the Hawkers, covering the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is another Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Very excited to bring you a Thursday episode of the show, which does include a Game 3 preview, which I'm very excited to talk about. You know, the fact that now after 2 days of waiting, there is finally another game day for the Hurricanes. Also going to do a points update as well, talking about all that in terms of where we're looking in terms of the players and after the first 2 games of the series. And we're going to start the show off with talking about an update to the injury that Brett Pesce did suffer in Game 2, unfortunately. But before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. So, like I said, on Wednesday, we finally did get an update from the Carolina Hurricanes and more so Rod Brind'amour in terms of what is going on with Brett Pesce, because you saw probably halfway through the game on Monday night in the second period, looked like there was an incident where trying to make a defensive stop in a play like that. Looks like he got kind of twisted up and suffered a lower body injury, missed the rest of the game. The Hurricanes did have to play with 5 defensemen, and we all knew, they were going to try and evaluate him on Tuesday, see how all that went, and then the news finally dropped on Wednesday that he is officially out with a lower body injury. Thank you to Luke DeCock, who kind of talked about it first, and then it was confirmed later on in the day by Rod Brind'amour, and the fact that Brett will be out for at least the rest of the series against the New York Islanders. They are not sure if it's anything past that, but as of right now, all initial indications are saying that he will be out for the rest of the first round. And Rod Brind'amour specifically said he's a big part of what we're doing, so that's a big blow, which it really is. The fact that you have a guy like Brett Pesce who can't play a 200-foot game, who can be offensive, but is also good defensively as well. But the fact that he's more than likely out for the rest of the series, and that's going to make things very, very interesting in terms of what do you necessarily do in terms of how you look at the defensive core going into Game 3 tonight on Thursday. And, I think the defensive pairings in general are probably going to get changed as much. I would not be surprised if it's going to be a plugging in someone on the right side D to pair up with Brady Shea, but we'll get into all that stuff as we do the Game 3 preview. But just the overall loss of Brett Pesce is not something you really want to see. He's been playing, pretty well all season. If you look past the points, he does do what Rod Brind'amour asks of him in terms of playing defense, creating chances, and just being able to transition the puck out of the Hurricanes defensive zone and move into the forward core. So the season that he's having and the way you lose him now, you lose Teuvo Teravainen in the first round last year against the Islanders, and now you go in the next year lose Brett Pesce for at least the rest of the series as well against the Islanders again in round 1. So it's not ideal to really lose anyone, but to lose one of your top 4 defensemen on your roster, and you're in 2 games into a really long, probably playoff campaign. Because, you're not really going to see teams go 16-0, so you're at least going to hit 19, 20 games before it's all said and done. But to lose him in game 2 is kind of a tough hit for the Hurricanes. It's not detrimental overall, but just knowing that you're not going to have him for the rest of the series, and you don't even know what the timeline is after that. Now, I guess if you want to talk about it, and I put this in quotes, best case scenario, he's just out for the rest of the series, and he's going to be ready for whoever the Hurricanes face in round 2, which right now, currently, it's the New York Rangers up 2-0 on the Capitals in their series. So more than likely, you could be seeing the New York Rangers in round 2. So you hope that if it's just round 1, that Brett will be back for round 2 against the Rangers, but you never know. It is the playoffs. The Capitals could make things interesting, but either way you look at it, like I said, that's your best case scenario. He's just out for the rest of the series. He's back for round 2, and then you just go from there. Worst case scenario, he's out for the playoffs, and you really don't want to see that, especially how hard he's worked all season, the fact that this team is poised to win a cup, and the fact that he was even drafted by the Hurricanes. The last thing you really want to see is a guy who's been with the team since even in the middle of the dark ages before Rod ever even became the head coach, and it's like this is the best chance the team has to go win it, and now he's out. And you hate to see him out longer than the series. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, and hopefully it's not too long, but definitely, sending well wishes to Brett. Hopefully, he has a safe and speedy recovery. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Hopefully he is back. It'd be great if he was back for the series, but if not, hopefully it's just this series and he'll be back for round 2. But it definitely, like I said, makes the blue line situation more interesting, and looking at even probably special teams as well, and just matchups and just the way the Hurricanes are going to play. So it's going to be at least that the fact that the Hurricanes got a chance to have Wednesday to practice before they flip to New York to face the Islanders on Thursday. Tuesday was an off day for them, after an incredible night on Monday, but at least you kind of got a chance. Okay, you're going to have to plug someone in, got see how everyone's doing, and kind of just get ready for game 3 that's on Long Island tonight on Thursday against the New York Islanders, and hopefully you keep that ball rolling and see where it goes from there. But it's, like I said, it stinks to see a guy get hurt. It's really bad when it's a guy who's busted his butt all season, especially in a contract year where he's an unrestricted free agent after the season. You're hoping that he was going to have some, good mojo and hopefully figure all that out. But like I said, they're not sure how long this thing is. They know it's the round. They know it's the first round. Hopefully it's not more than that. So I guess we'll see it all when we come to that bridge and all that stuff. But like I said, hopefully for a speedy recovery for Brett. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, and hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. So next up, we're going to talk about player stats after the first 2 games of the series, see where everyone's looking at in terms of goals, assists, a lot of penalty minutes, especially after game 2 and all that good stuff. We'll get to that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Guys, I need you all to listen up for this huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboards every day, keeping my eye on the scores, putting all my heart into it, and I'm super pumped to announce I am finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You've probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on classic Monopoly. You can play anywhere, anytime. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. Charge rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly. You can charge your friends rent on your iconic properties or go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. So get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and Google Play. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we're going to do a quick look and see how the Hurricanes are shaping up in terms of their points and see where everyone's at after the first two games, especially after a chaotic and crazy ending to the game two, where there was some misconducts, some scraps, stuff like that. But just overall, just seeing where we're kind of updating. I want to try to do this every two games for this series and even for the whole playoffs. We're going to try to break down, after every two games to see where everyone's at and stuff like that. And if a series ends sooner rather than later, then obviously we'll do like a whole series look and see how the guys did. But for the first two games, the current points leaders are actually, it's tied between Seth Jarvis and Brady Shea, who both have 3 points, but Seth Jarvis with a goal and 2 assists, Brady Shea with 3 assists on his tally, and then you got Kuznetsov at 2 points, Jake Gensel at 2, and also Sebastian Aho with a few other guys as well. A few guys with 1 point. And then the only guys who haven't scored any points yet are Brett Burns, Dmitry Orlov, Jacob Slavin, Jalen Chatfield, and just Barry Kokaniemi. In terms of the plus minus, it's very surprising to see the fact that you got Brady Shea at a +4, which is really good. Jack Drury's at a +3, and that's after with his 2 points, which is really good to see. And of course, Jordan Martinook's at a +2, along with Jake Gensel and also Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis. In terms of the penalty minutes, we're only 2 games in, and oh my goodness, we have a lot of penalty minutes. Mostly to only 3 guys. Stefan Nason does have 19 penalty minutes. Of course, you're talking, his 5-minute major in the fight, and also probably his game misconduct that he had at the end of the game. Jalen Chatfield also has 12 penalty minutes as well, also part of the game misconduct. And then Jake Gensel, for the first time in over 580 games in his career, also got a game misconduct. His first time ever, he's also at 10 penalty minutes. So you have 3 guys already in the double digits in 2 games. And the fact that Steph Nason's he's basically almost averaging 10 penalty minutes a game so far in the first 2 games of the series. And then you got Dmitry Orlov with 2, Brett Pesce and Andrei Svechnikov both have 2 penalty minutes on their docket. And, of course, game-winning goals, we all know, Steph Nason in Game 1, Jordan Martinook in Game 2. And then in terms of goalies, well, we only got one goalie to really talk about, and that is Frederik Andersen. He's 2-0 after the first 2 games with a goals against average of 2.01. He stopped 42 of the 46 shots that he's faced so far, and that's incredible, especially after looking at the fact that he only had 12 shots in Game 2. But his save percentage is a .913. And in terms of time of ice for Frederik Andersen so far in the first 2 games, 119 minutes and 8 seconds. But obviously, you love to see it from Freddie, the fact that, he's just a little over a 2. Save percentage is still good. It's almost in the .920s. So overall, I mean, you have 1 goal in Game 1. You give up 3 in Game 2. Granted, 3 goals on 12 shots, not the greatest in terms of save percentage, but the fact that he's still almost in the 920s. Goals against is just a .01 over 2. You really can't complain too much for the fact that your goalie's only given up 4 goals in 2 games. Nothing to really complain about in terms of that. In terms of the points, it's not really a surprise that Seth Jarvis is kind of tied for the points lead, especially the season that he had in the regular season, and the fact that Brady Shea also has been playing really well. Like I said, 3 assists, and he's a +4. So that's all you can really ask out of your left side second D pair guy. The fact that he's doing what he does, and obviously it shows that he can put up the points and all that good stuff as well. But it's good to see like Sebastian Aho getting on the score sheet, Jake Gensel getting on there as well. You saw with Jordan Martinook, Steph Nason, and stuff like that. So it's good to see you had a lot of depth scoring in Game 1, but then in Game 2 you see all the big boys show up. Like I said, Jarvis, Gensel, Aho, all got goals. Jordan Martinook with a huge one as well. Teuvo Teravainen comes in clutch, gets the first goal of for the Hurricanes in that game as well. So you're seeing, like I said, you saw depth scoring. Now you're seeing the guys that that you're wanting to see score do their thing as well. And all it's going to do is just build momentum. And the fact that it is you're already looking at 3 guys who've already hit the double-digit mark in just 2 games into the playoffs, and the fact that Steph Nason's already at 19 penalty minutes, and it's just crazy with the thing that Jake Gensel got his first ever game misconduct, and it's in game 2 of the first round, and it's against the New York Islanders after he scored an empty netter and got whatever this new thing is now where like players get upset if you don't score an empty net goal the proper way. I've never really seen that be a thing until this year when really Greg did it for the Ottawa Senators, and Morgan Riley gets like a 6-game suspension for cross-checking him in the neck head area. And now it seems like everyone's getting in their feelings about that. So it's crazy to where we're at now, where there's the code of, and I put that in air quotes, code of you have to score a goal a certain way, which it is what, like, it's not that big of a deal. It happens. It's just, it's a weird thing, but nonetheless, the fact that Jake did get his first misconduct is what it is. Steph Nason, he made his presence felt. Like I said, got into a couple fights already and stuff like that. And then, Matt Martin tries to go after him. He takes care of him with no issues. And Jaden Sheffield was kind of interesting. I was kind of surprised that he got slapped with one of those two, but what can you do? But that's what we're kind of sitting at in terms of just looking at stats overall after the first 2 games. Like I said, I want to try to do this every 2 games through the series and stuff like that. So that way we kind of know where everyone's at. And let's say a series ends in 5, then we kind of know where, okay, it's like, okay, here's 5 games. This is what it looked like after that, and then go from there. So kind of a nice little catch-up breakdown as we go throughout the series as well. So with that being said, we are going to preview Game 3 on, like I said, tonight on Thursday night on Long Island for the first 2 games. They're going to be up there in New York. We'll get to that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with the Indeed suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to U.S. data. And also, too, Indeed does the hard hiring work for you. Sponsor a job and we'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Once again, that is Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to a third segment of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So to close out the rest of the show, we are going to preview Game 3 that's, like I said, on Thursday night in Long Island for the first 2 games of being up there in that area. In terms of how we're looking in the fact of the game starts, it's going to be a 7:30 p.m. start for Game 3. And then on Saturday, Game 4 will be at 2 p.m. So make sure to keep that in mind in terms of what time the puck drop is for those 2 games. But specifically for Thursday night, you got Bally Sports South in ESPN2 if you're going to be watching on TV. And it's also, as always, on 99.9 The Fan if you're able to watch the game and stuff like that. At least you can still hear Mike and Tripp do the call on that side of things. Like I said, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Bally Sports South, ESPN2 to watch it, and then 99.9 The Fan if you're able to listen to it as well. If you're in Canada, Sportsnet 360 and all that good stuff as well. When Jordan Stahl was asked, with the series shifting up to Long Island, he said it's the same focus we've had from the start, but in a different building, in a different environment. And to be honest, like that's the real way you can look at it is the fact that, yeah, it's now in Long Island. You're not in Carolina. You're going up to New York. You're going and dealing with Islanders fans in their own barn. It's not, you're not coming straight from the house to the arena. You got, travel and hotel and stuff like that. So, but Jordan Stahl put it perfectly. It's no different where you're doing. This game could be in the North Pole on an ice sheet near an igloo or something like that. It doesn't really matter where you're at. It's just you bring the same mentality, and that's what Rod Brind'amour and his coaching staff does with his team. And it's something to keep in mind where there's no losing focus. It's like you take one day at a time. You go 1-0 every day. You get 1% better, and that's just how it is. And Mike and Mike Maniscalco and Shane Willis talked about on their podcast on Canes Cast. It's when you watch the bench, there's no head drops. There's no guys feeling sorry for themselves. There's no. The Hurricanes are probably the most even keeled team that you can look at in terms of the fact the mentality that Rod Brind'amour and his coaching staff bring is that it's always let's get better, let's focus. They're always talking to each other. They're always looking at their iPads. They're always trying to find ways to play better, and that's kind of the thing that's the mentality you kind of need for a team like the Hurricanes that are going into Long Island and facing a team who is upset because the fact that you blow a 3-0 lead going from second period, you're up 1 with less than 3 minutes left and you give up 2 goals in 9 seconds. Yeah, you're going to be playing a very upset team. And just staying focused, playing your game, and that's all they really ask for going into that game. Because the last thing you really want is to give the Islanders any momentum from Game 3 or Game 4 and take this back to Carolina. The one thing that the Hurricanes are definitely hoping for, and of course it's very obvious, you want to take Game 3. Like you want to take at least Game 3 or at least take one of those games on Long Island. So that way when you're coming back to Carolina for Game 5, if there is a Game 5, you at least want to have 3 wins in your column. You don't want to come back to Carolina split. You got to at least take one of those 2 games on Long Island, either on Thursday or on Saturday. So I think, like I said, that's the kind of mentality you need to look at, is the fact that, yeah, you have to just take it as another game day. It doesn't matter where you're at. So you gotta love that aspect from Jordan Stahl, is the fact you look at that perspective of it's just another game, nothing's gonna change, and that's what you kind of really have to do. Like I said, every game trying to go 1-0, and you get 1% better. So Elliot Friedman actually tweeted out earlier on Wednesday that the New York Islanders announced from Patrick Waugh, their head coach, that Ilya Sorokin will start Game 3 against the Carolina Hurricanes. So after Semyon Varlamov giving up 8 goals, he gave up 7 goals because Emden doesn't count, but he gave up 7 goals in 2 games against Carolina in Raleigh. So you kind of had a feeling that they're probably going to go with Sorokin at some point, and they did. And a lot of Islanders fans that I know talked to Gil Martin over at Locked On Islanders that they have a feeling if whenever Sorokin comes in, and he could be a guy who could probably steal a game or 2. And now their backs are not fully up against the wall, but they're kind of feeling that pressure of the wall right behind them for the fact that you are down 2-0 in the series. You're going back to Long Island. You just blew a game where you're up 3-0. You lose 5-3. It's something to where, yeah, they had to make a change. It was kind of obvious they're going to have to make a change. And of course, that's in net. Like I said, Varlamov gave up 7. You knew they had to go to Sorokin, and now here you go. Now can you get to Ilya Sorokin as well? Because the last thing you really want to do is give Sorokin any type of confidence for him to get hot because he's a good goaltender. He's a lot of people consider him top 5, top 10. I think he's a really good goaltender. Did the Islanders have a great season? No. Do they have a great goaltending group? It's a decent goaltending tandem, but I wouldn't say it's the best. But he's a goalie that could, if he's hot and plays really well, he could steal you a game or two. Stealing a series, it remains to be seen, but I would not be surprised if he did take a game. So if I'm Carolina, all you're really hoping for is that you keep the pressure that you put on, Varlamov and put it on Sorokin and put it on the Islanders. And, if you can take game 3 and put it 3-0, then their backs are fully against the wall. Now they're playing an elimination game in game 4. But let's say something happens and you at least split, in Long Island and you come back to Raleigh, and there you go then. But you at least got to get to Sorokin in game 3 and shake the confidence of the Islanders of okay, so couldn't get done with Varlamov. Now you're having trouble doing with Sorokin. It's kind of like what the Hurricanes did to the New Jersey Devils last year in round 2, where it's like it didn't matter who they threw in net. The Hurricanes were just getting to their goaltender. So that's kind of what you need to do too to the Islanders. Get to their goalie. Just get to their goalies and make them very nervous of the fact, okay, no one can stop the Hurricanes. So that's kind of what you need to look at on terms of that. So in terms of who the Hurricanes are going to put in net, it remains to be seen. You could see them going with Frederik Andersen to keep running with the hot goalie. Like I said, he's got a .917 save percentage, and he does have a 2.01 goals against. So I wouldn't be surprised if Rod does go with Freddie because they've had the last 2 days off. Frederik Andersen starts Saturday, gets the win, starts Monday, gets the win. And that was with a day off in between. Now you get 2 days off. He's playing really well. I could see them going with, like I said, Freddie for game 3 with the 2 days off. Or maybe they go with Pyotr Kochetkov because he hasn't really played since the second to last game of the season against the Chicago Blackhawks in Chicago. So you don't want to have him sitting around too much to get kind of out of a flow that he was in for pretty much the whole back end of the regular season where he was, swapping in and out of every game with Frederik Andersen. So the last thing you really want to do is have him sit for a long time. But I could see, so he could come in, but I also wouldn't be surprised to go with Frederik Andersen again. So it's not really confirmed yet. Of course, no one really knows until the day of. So most likely somewhere along today on Thursday, we will get an announcement from, Rod Brind'amour and the Hurricanes of seeing who the game 3 starter is going to be between Frederik Andersen and Pyotr Kochetkov. In terms of how the lines looked like at practice on Wednesday afternoon at PNC before the team flew to Long Island, with the fact that with Brett Pesce being out and Jesper Foss is still out with his upper body injury, still no word on what that timeline looks like. So he's unfortunately going to miss game 3 as well because Rod Brind'amour said if they're not at practice, they're not going to play. So I would say right now Jesper Foss is still out for game 3, so that's going to be technically his 4th straight game he's missed, but his 3rd straight playoff game. And with Brett Pesce being out potentially the rest of the series, that's kind of what we're looking at there. But they've also, in terms of how the lines actually looked, so you had Jake Ensel, Sebastian Aho, and Andrei Svechnikov on the first line, Teravainen, Kotkaniemi, and Martin Necas on the second line, and it was Martinook, Stahl, and Jarvis. And then on the 4th, you had Jack Drury, Evgeny Kuznetsov, and then you had Steph Nason and Brendan Lemieux kind of swap back and forth. And then you had Max Comtois as an extra with his recent call up along with Dylan Coghlan. So they were kind of like the extra guys in terms of that. And looking at the defensive pairs, the fact that we have, unfortunately with Brett Pesce out, now they kind of have their even number of 8 defensemen. And it's Slavin Burns, no surprise. And then this one was very interesting. They had, which it's not really surprising because the fact of how Orlov and Chaffield's been, I'm not surprised that Tim Gleason and Rod wanted to keep them together. So second pairing is Brady Shea and Tony DeAngelo, Orlov Chatfield for the third line. And then, of course, the extra defensive pair, or I guess the 4th pair, if you want to look at it, is Dylan Coghlan and Scott Morrow. So that's kind of what the lines are looking at. I wouldn't be surprised if those are the lines that we go into the game on Thursday night. It really depends on what they do with Brendan Lemieux. I could see them with the fact of how game 2 went. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe someone in the regular starter group does sit and Brendan Lemieux comes in just for an extra assurance of, hey, let's not have any too many shenanigans here. So you could see Lemieux. I'm not 100%, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go down that route as well, just depending on how game 2 ended. So you could see a little bit more snot, grit, vinegar to the lineup going into that game. But it'll be very interesting. Of course, you see your defensive pairs. Tony D'Angelo probably will be coming in to replace, Brett Pesce on the right side second pair. That's kind of what you're looking at in terms of your lineups. Like I said, goalie is not announced for the Hurricanes yet, but we know who is going to be for the Islanders. But that will wrap up the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen every day. As always, I've been really excited just to see the growth and all the numbers that everyone and all the support that everyone's been bringing on. Thank you so much for all of that. If you want to follow me, I'm at OneTrueZach on Twitter. If you want to follow the podcast, it's LO_Hurricanes. If you go to my bio, if you go to the link tree in my bio on Twitter, you can see where you can find my articles at the Hockey Writers covering the Carolina Hurricanes, along with the podcast and YouTube link for my other podcast, The Surgecast, and also links to listen to this podcast or watch it on YouTube for Locked On Hurricanes. If you are on the YouTube side of Locked On Hurricanes, please make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification, make sure they're turned on so you don't miss an episode, and also to hit that like button as well. I'd really appreciate that. And share it with other fellow Caniacs if they have not been able to subscribe yet, because we are on the road to 1,000. And thank you to everyone who's gotten us to over 100 or getting us to over 810 subscribers. I think last time I checked, we're at 815. So we're getting ever so closer to 1,000 because I want to do something special for you guys at 1,000 subs on YouTube. And if you're on the podcast side of things, please make sure to subscribe to wherever you listen. It could be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast. Please subscribe and also leave a 5-star rating, because that will really greatly help me with growth and get out there as well for other Caniacs to check out this podcast. And if you leave a review with your 5-star rating, I just might read it on the show. But like I said, that wraps up this episode. I hope everyone has a great Thursday. I hope everyone enjoys watching the Carolina Hurricanes play tonight against the New York Islanders on Long Island for Game 3 of the first round of the 2024 NHL playoffs. And until next time, guys, as always, let's go Canes.